We've been trying to set this up for a long time.
Yeah, I appreciate you hanging in there with me. My schedule is pretty wild, and I really just don't have the time like I used to for interviews. Like my free time is with three kids, it's pretty busy.
First of all, for the people that watch my podcast, could you just sort of introduce yourself and sort of explain your phenomenal background in all of this?
Sure, sure. My name is Chris Bartel. I'm mostly known for my time at Skinwalker Ranch, from the Bigelow period from 2010 to 2016. Prior to working the ranch for security, uh, I was in the Air Force, stationed at Nellis Air Force Base, active duty from 1998 to 2006. Security forces, main base side. Also during that time, I also worked at Creech Air Force Base as a cadre instructor. And then in 2006, I got out of active duty and went IMA reserves for the Air Force till 2009. And in 2006, I also got hired with the Department of Energy for the Nevada test site as a security police officer, where I obtained a Q level clearance and did my role as, protecting all PL1 responsibilities and properties and assets. And then eventually, my wife, who I met in the Air Force, she got orders to Maelstrom Air Force Base. And we moved to Maelstrom Air Force Base for a short time. And she's from Montana, so that was a pretty good move. But the Air Force was downsizing. And we ended up coming back to Las Vegas. And when I came back to Las Vegas, I tried to go back to the test site where just came from, basically. But there was a federal hiring freeze. So I got hired with a company that had the contract for Area 51, and I ended up working the Janet detail. It was a part-time gig at first, and then it became a full-time gig. And then around the exact same time, I got hired with BAASS in 2010 by another Air Force individual that I served with at Nellis. It's all about who you know in this
Yeah.
line of work. Really, it's about who you know. And I got the gig for BAASS for security officer for Skinwalker Ranch. But we also did the investigations and collected the data and did experiments sometimes on the property. And so in early October of 2010, I found myself on the ranch and was up there up until the property was sold to Brendan Fugel, and then I remained on with Bigelow Aerospace until 2018. And in 2017, my father passed away. I'm originally from Kansas, a small town called Hillsborough, Kansas. And so it was time to move back, leave the city of Las Vegas after being out there for 20 years. And then we moved out here to Las Vegas, or I'm sorry, to back to Kansas. And I got hired with the federal police department out here, did several years there and retired recently with that. And now I'm just working on background investigations, still for the government, but a different role now. And then
Okay.
full-time photographer also, as a started as a hobby a long time ago, and now I've been doing it professionally for a couple of years now.
I love your photography. I absolutely love it.
Thank you.
You used to have a website. Now you've got a Patreon.
I
Um,
have a Patreon now, yeah, because it's
yeah.
easier for me to post a lot more pictures and engage with people. It's free also, and it just gives me more um, availability to communicate directly with people that have questions about, and also I'm able to upload stuff weekly. And eventually, I'm going to probably start a website again and start selling some of my prints because I get a lot of messages and people asking to buy prints. And I used to sell them a long time ago, and I just now that I'm kind of winding down, going into the retirement role, I'm trying to find some time to get that started.
That'd be fantastic. I love your photography on Skinwalker Ranch. I follow you very closely on X, where you're posting stuff from those years. You
Yeah,
you spent more time out there, I think, than anybody, right? You lived out there from 2010 to 2016 at least, right? You and the
yeah.
dog.
I mean, yeah, there was we did 2 week stints out there. So when we weren't out there, we were back in Las Vegas doing security for Bigelow Aerospace or doing other gigs out there. But yeah, off and on up on the ranch for 6 years. Out there, I'd say 90% of that time was alone, also with just me and the dogs out
Yeah.
there. And doing the patrolling, but also trying to collect data or look for anything out of the ordinary to document. And yeah, we did that. I did that the entire time.
So 90% of the time you were alone out there with the dogs.
Yeah. Yes. That around February of 2011, we went to one-man patrols out there. And the ranch man, we still had two ranch managers out there who I love to death. But they were elderly, so they stayed more at, Homestead one area. And so it was pretty much, you're up there for 2 weeks and you still had a job to do, which was secure the property, but also those of us who were out there were still trying to collect data and document experiences and stuff like that. And then when we went to units out there, it was very difficult because now you lost a secondary witness to events, and now you've lost backup if something goes bad. And it was not. It took a while to adjust, honestly, because to push out every night into the darkness by yourself out there, it took a while to get used to.
Yeah, with no backup, I can just imagine. What did it feel like to be on the ranch alone? Because that's impossible now, right? They've got all those cameras and
Yeah.
everybody's around, all the electronics.
Yeah.
To just be out there alone, what was that like all those years?
Back then, it's so crazy to me to see that the ranch is like a mainstream topic now, or there's a show and stuff, because back then I never thought in a million years that would happen. So when it comes to the ranch, it's very real to me. I don't really consider it like entertainment purposes. I mean, I'm heavily invested in the narrative out there. Um, but being out there during that time, it was stressful. It was very stressful, not just because you didn't want anything bad to happen on your watch out there, anything negative to happen to the pro, to the property or to the ranch managers or yourself. And so you had to really push yourself to be out in the elements at all times and have eyes on the property, because we didn't have any camera systems out there at all, not one. So you had to be physically present in the environment, which was, looking back now, was super beneficial for me because it helped me kind of evolve and expand my consciousness, being immersed in so much environment and in nature, and that kind of helped with my photography as well, because I use my photography to kind of pass the time. And that the photography was never meant to see the light of day. That was just something I was doing out there to pass the time, but also to show my kids one day where I worked at and this really cool job that I had. And I'm glad I did. I'm really glad I did.
I'm glad you did too. Yeah, and some of the experiences you've shared about, you did some meditations sometimes on top of the mesa, just you and the dogs,
Yeah,
and the other thing is you collected an incredible amount of artifacts off of the ranch.
I I did.
Yeah,
And, the first year I was out there, our focus was primarily, there's this big misconception, I think, in I guess the Skinwalker community or history, that the ranch guards out there were just doing the guard stuff, like, just checking gates. That is the farthest thing from the truth. During that timeline, we were the ones responsible for doing the investigations, collecting data, doing the daily reports that were going to the Pentagon. That was all done by BAASS guards up there. It wasn't a group of scientists out there every single day. And this is just the honest truth. This isn't like me um, being negative about the situation. This is just how it was. Typical military situation where you work more with less, and that's how we operated. But it was interesting to be out there like that. But my like I said, my photography was never meant to see the light of day. It was just something that I did to document out there. But it was interesting. The first year out there, we focused more on the Ghostbuster type stuff, EVP sessions inside the homesteads, trying to collect data with photographs and all this stuff. And then it wasn't until March of 2011, when I was out there by myself, I had a pretty good routine down with the dogs. And every morning around 10:30, 11, I would go out with our hike. And I would eventually end up at this place called the Eastern Canyon, or the Eastern Valley, with the dogs, and we would have lunch together, just me and the dogs.
yeah.
And I uh, I put my bag down that had all the food in it and water and stuff. And I sat there for a while with the dogs and just kind of enjoyed the day. And then when I went to pick my bag up, I noticed right next to my bag was a really nice silver granite arrowhead. And when I picked it up, I was like, oh my God, like everything kind of clicked. And I viewed the ranch at that point, with my background in law enforcement, as that, not like, I mean, I hate to say it, but like a crime scene. Like, okay, now I have physical evidence that might lead to something. And so I started documenting it. I started documenting where I found it, GPS locations, photographs, and I was putting this on the daily reports that were going out.
Wow.
And eventually, which was so bizarre to me, they told me to stop documenting the artifacts and that it wasn't important. And I was just dumbfounded. Like, this is extremely important because for the first time ever, we have physical evidence that could lead up to who was out there and why were they out there. And when I found, so I took that topographical map of the property and I started putting the check marks. And I noticed when there was an abundance of artifacts, there was also people reporting anomalous activity nearby.
Yeah. Now,
So
I've got that map. Can I bring that? I
Yeah.
got this shared on my screen.
Sure.
Okay, so this is your map, right?
Yeah, that's my map. Yep.
And so this is like from 2011 to 2016.
Yep.
So this,
2010 to 2016. Yep.
okay, so this is like a complete map of what you found while you were there
Yes.
with the
Yeah.
GPS locations.
Yeah, the GPS locations is on a different data sheet, and I gave all that stuff over to Chris Roberts, who's the who pretty much took my data and is just validating everything that I found back then, and
Yeah.
he's found way more so.
Well, I am stunned by how many of these red marks you've got
Yeah.
where you found. This is just, it's overwhelming for me to see this much stuff. I mean, are these all just arrowheads or are there other
No,
things?
no, no. Some of them are like grindstones or tools, like skinning tools, flakes, what's called evidence of occupation. Some of those areas are actually areas of interest, like the cave area where I found in 2012. How I found that cave, I was actually following a trail of U agate that was flakes. And I followed it from on top of the mesa down and went into the cavern area.
Is
The
this,
cavity.
is it this small cave in? Is this what you're talking
Yeah.
about here?
That's it right there. And when I jumped down into the small cave in, I found two big wolf traps, like canine traps in there. And it was so bizarre because it just was so out of place. It was in this little cavern area. It was like a void. And there was these wolf traps that were laying there. I've been placed there for who knows how long. They were old and rusted. And I had pictures of them too that went with this graph.
Wow.
And yeah.
And you've also got, is this your blue orb that you identified here?
So
And Indian drums? Is that what
Indian drums.
you heard them or you saw them?
Heard them. So that's Homestead 3. It was me and another officer one morning. It was about 3 o'clock in the morning, and we were just sitting on a tree limb out there. And this is in 2010 or 2011, 2010. I think it was in fall of 2010. We were sitting there and we heard off further on the west, it sounded like a powwow, like a drum music. And it lasted for about maybe 7 to 8 seconds, just long enough for us to pull out our EVP or our digital recorder and hit record, and then it stopped. And we just sat there like, did you hear that? And he's like, I heard that. And we just kind of sat there. And then we scouted the whole area for like a couple hours. We were up and down that whole area trying to see if there was somebody camping out there or if there was like some type of powwow and we were getting like an echo coming through the canyon there. And we found nothing.
Wow.
It was weird.
Now, this is this the east area you're talking about where you would camp with the
there, yeah.
dogs?
Yeah, that's the East Canyon.
Yeah, the East
And,
Canyon, right.
Yeah. And that's where I found a majority of the artifacts out there. And they're most of them are still out there. The problem is that area, and you probably know this from being out there, anytime it rains, the whole terrain changes. Things just slide in, the whole area changes. So that's why I started GPSing photographs of the area. And I've gone back to some of those locations and I can't find, not, I'll find stuff out there, but not the original stuff. It's either washed away. And some of the stuff I took back to Homestead 1 and I had it in a big wooden, like a wooden bowl. And I was going online and trying to get do more research of some of the artifacts. Some of those I took down to Vernal to the museum back in 2010, 2011, and had the museum look at them and they validated they have. Those are old archaic stones or whatever. But I had the wooden bowl inside the trailer and then it disappeared. Well, after we sold the I think somebody probably got on the property after we sold the ranch and probably took those artifacts.
Oh,
They weren't up there.
so you don't have these artifacts anymore.
No. No.
And some of them you left there, right?
Oh yeah, I left a majority of them out there.
And now you've identified a small cave here.
Yeah, there's a small cave over there. It's now collapsed in as well because of
Okay.
the rain. Yeah,
And where's the spiral? You know, the famous spiral
that is going to be just a little bit west of the small cave.
over here.
Yeah, right around that area. Yeah,
Oh, you know, I think that's it, right by this word
right there.
small.
Yep, right
Okay,
there.
so
That's
that's
it.
where the spiral is.
Yeah,
Got it. Now, some of this is not actually like owned by Brandon Fugel, is that right?
right now. And yeah, because back in our timeline, we had 1,000 acres to secure because the Bigelow leased the land around the ranch.
Okay,
So it
so
gave us a more of a available. It gave us more of an area to secure, but also an area to investigate.
can you tell me about this orange orb that you saw?
Yeah. So I think it was in 2012 or 2013. I was at the East Gate with the dogs. It was probably like 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, and I looked over in the Eastern Canyon, and I thought there was a trespasser with an orange flashlight or an orange. It looked like an orange lantern, like a big lantern. And so naturally, I assumed it was a trespasser because it's like, it's standing out pretty obviously. And so me and the dogs ran over there. And by the time we got over there, there was nothing. There was no signs of an individual. There was nothing to indicate there was even a presence, like a physical presence in that area. And
Yeah.
with the big indicator that something was weird was the dogs. The dogs are always something that we watch very closely, their behaviors, and they looked very uneasy. So it was just one of those things that we just try to document as best you can,
Yeah,
as
yeah,
and
yeah.
that's kinda how the ranch is, documenting stuff out there is pretty hard. I mean, even now with all the camera systems they have out there, I'm sure they still have a little difficult time trying to document
Yeah,
stuff,
the phenomenon is very elusive.
It is.
You're the one person that's advocating for like the history of the land
Yeah.
as the most important thing. And this map kind of tells the story. I don't think most people understand how much you've actually found out there. And you're saying they're arrowheads as well as other things, right?
Arrowheads, stone tools,
Stone tools.
areas of interest. As a matter of fact, if you look at the one that says Hollow Rock Shadow,
Oh
so
yeah.
the Hollow Rock is something I found in 2014. It's a hollowed out rock, and there was evidence of occupation there of one person who probably lived at this rock, this area. And right next to the rock where those three X's are at, those are actually the one farthest south is actually a handful of they're called grandfathers and grandmother stones, which are used for some ceremonial sweat lodges. So that means that area was used for ceremonial purposes back in the day. We're talking thousands of years ago. These
Thousands of
are
years ago?
that so the artifacts that I found out there, I've had them timeline, and they go back from the Paleo Indians all the way to the ancestral Puebloan, the modern indigenous cultures that lived out there. We're
Yeah.
talking like an 8,000 year timeline that's out there.
8,000 years?
8,000 years. We're
And
talking
so,
Paleo Indians.
okay, so I mean, there's nothing really that stands out right now, at least. Like this would be like an ideal place to live. You've
Right.
got the stream that goes along on the ridge, and then you've also got the gulch.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, what's your hypothesis? Do you think like there was like a settlement here, or was this a
Well, I
ceremonial site?
I think a couple things, and the evidence that led to this conclusion is obvious from this graph that it's the indigenous history, energy, frequency, and vibration that's displaced in the natural environment. And when you tune your own frequency into that environment, you can probably experience something what we consider paranormal, what they would consider spiritual. And I think the combination of the underground water system that runs all the way up from and it comes out at Skinwalker, but it goes all the way north through Blind Frog Ranch and up the Crow Canyon area.
Yeah.
That water source, and then James Keenan had mentioned magnetic anomalies that are maybe possible from a remnants of a meteor impact strike that dispersed throughout the basin. So it created a unique atmosphere where maybe there was natural phenomena happening that drew people there for spiritual purposes. Like
Yeah.
magnetically, how we're magnetically charged to go somewhere. And so maybe indigenous cultures went out there and they viewed it more of a spiritual spot. And instead of, they document as best they can, but they just spiritually evolved with it. They
Yeah.
understood what it was and they just evolved with it. And I think when I was out there, my whole perception changed once I started focusing on that reality because it was undeniable evidence. And as a matter of fact, you can go out there right now and prove it. And I was fortunate to be raised by a mother who is Cherokee, and she grew up on the reservations in the Southwest. And she taught me how to meditate and ground myself when I was a very young kid. But I didn't put it in practice until I got out there because I was out there alone. So
Yeah.
um, I held me focused on my photography because I would do a grounding protocol out there and what I call meditation rock. That's where I would go. And sometimes at night I would sleep with the dogs at that location.
Right here.
And it just helped me get really focused, but also connect to the land. And I think that's important. I think if you want to elevate your consciousness, you have to physically immerse yourself in these environments. And it doesn't have to be Skinwalker Ranch. It can be anywhere where you feel a connection to nature, like our ancestors did, and you evolve spiritually. And I think that's why people went there or were there. Obviously, there was people there for thousands of years.
That's amazing. So you think they were actually here for thousands of years. Clearly there was something going
Yep.
on in this area for a while.
Right.
And it
And
may have been a
paleo.
ceremonial site, but also people actually may have lived here
Oh,
because it
yeah.
was like, would you like classify it like sacred land, like
I would
a
definitely
sacred
say
site?
sacred site, 100%. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
There, that whole area over there, especially that eastern canyon, I believe, is one of the most important areas of that whole property. It
Yeah.
needs a real thorough archaeology comb through in that area.
Yeah. Especially with the spiral that's there,
Yeah.
right? And those are fairly large rocks. That's been there for a while.
Yeah, and it was kind of weird how I spent months gathering all this data back then, and it was completely ignored. It wasn't until later on in the years where I met Chris Roberts and Brandon Fugel's team, they actually kind of embraced it more and pushed forward more and actually are doing a good job of kind of documenting stuff out there. They understand it. The ranch has many overlapping layers, and I'm not saying my what I'm saying is the absolute end all of the conversation. My input is just a small piece of the puzzle, and the team that's out there now is doing a pretty damn good job of gathering more pieces of the puzzle that you know and we're all kind of getting together and putting our 2 cents. But I always go back to the indigenous cultures who were here thousands of years before us, and I just truly believe if there was some type of physical, like let's say contact or interactions with us spiritually, it would be humanity who was most connected to the earth. And look at society now, we are totally disconnected from that reality. And
Right,
so
right.
it just makes sense. And I could feel it when I'm out there. I feel like the land has a consciousness about it. And the land knows a person's true self, your genuine self. And
Yeah.
I've been out there and I've experienced darkness out there and I've experienced light out there, but it really depends on the person what they're going to project and you're going to get it back. So it's a
Yeah.
unique property, but it's not just that property, it's the whole basin out there. I love being out there. I wish I could still roam those hills every day. It was truly a unique experience.
Yeah. Would you live out there?
I would definitely live out there.
Really? Where would you live if you could live anywhere in the Uinta Basin?
Um, I would live probably, I like Vernal, obviously, because it's close by. There's modern stuff there. But honestly, I do like the Fort Duchesne area. I like
Yeah.
it because I like the real grittiness of that environment out there. It's just
Yeah.
I love the grittiness of American culture, like the Southwest and the history of the grit of the nation. And I like the feeling how I feel out there in that part of the basin. I just feel connected out there. So I would move. I would live close to the as that ranch as possible.
There's definitely something in that area that's,
Yeah.
I want to use the word spiritual. It doesn't feel paranormal to me. It
Yeah.
feels like it's a sacred site. Now, can we
Yeah.
talk a little bit about some of your experience? You've got wolf experience on here.
Yes.
And, you
So,
were saying a large wolf, and then they
yes.
found the potential dire wolf in the gulch.
Yeah. I
So,
was a little shocked when I actually was talking to Caleb directly when all that unfolded, and I was pretty much mind blown. Like, extremely validated, but also it, when that wolf experience happened, that was my second week of being on the property. And
Right.
I'll be honest with you, the first week I was up there on that ranch, I thought I wrote the place off as a complete joke. Because I grew up in the country of like out in the sticks where my parents live, is we used to raise American quarter horses. And so I was used to the country dynamics. And we had people on our team and probably previously who were born and raised in a city, and you throw them in a country environment, it's going to be very uneasy and uncomfortable for them. So they're going to probably report things that may have a common explanation. So the first week I was up there, um, I was like, this is just a ranch, like where I grew up at. It wasn't until the second week where me and another officer had a wolf experience that kind of flipped my whole perception around of like, there is something else going on out here that I'm not aware of.
Can
And
you give a little more detail
yeah.
in that? Because I've got some questions about exactly what happened. So as I understand it, there's this stream goes along here and then it like crosses the road. There's a
Mhm.
crossing between the road and the stream, right?
Yes, we
And there's
call
a
it
lot of grass in there. There's bushes.
yep. It's the ditch
The
that
ditch.
runs through the
Right.
property. Yeah.
And that's
And
right where the triangle is.
yeah. And back then we just called it the bend or whatever.
The
We didn't even
bend.
know. Yeah, we just called it the bend, and we didn't even know we didn't refer to it as a triangle. So in 2010, me and another officer were up there, and this is when we had two officers, and we had a pretty good routine down where every morning one guy would do a run of the property and kind of get the eyes on, and then the other guy would do the report from the night before, and then we would just flip flop every day, So, and this officer came back and he was like, "Hey, I found some weird footprints on top of the mesa," and I'm like, "What?" I go, "Let's go take a look." So we
Oh,
go up,
right there.
yeah, right there, wolf tracks. So we go up there and we see these at the time we had two black labs and a border collie, and they were full grown labs, so they're pretty good sized dogs. And these prints dwarfed our lab prints, and they were pretty large canine prints, and the wolf like prints. But what made it weird was it appeared that this animal had a 3 foot, 3.5 foot stride at some points. So it looked like it was walking on 2 feet and then back to 4 feet and then back to 2 feet. It just the the print ratio was very bizarre. That's what stood out to me. Besides the size of the print, I actually took a picture. I posted on X several times of throwing the ruler down, and it shows the stride of this animal. And so me and my partner were like, "What is this? Like, what could this be walking on 2 feet up here?" And remind you, this is in 2010. That th- there wasn't any other than the book. There was no YouTube videos. There was no. I didn't even read the book by that time. I didn't read the book until months later. And so we were just kind of figuring out like what are we dealing with up here. And so we call our supervisors and say, "Hey, this is what we got going on." And their advice is, document as best you can, but be safe. So me and that officer had this brilliant idea, which is kind of dumb looking back at it now, that we were going to try to capture this animal or at least get photographic evidence of this animal. So that night, it might have been the next night, we went out and we set up with the dogs, with all three of our dogs. We set up little campfires by Homestead 2. We did a campfire, and I want to say we did another one by Homestead 3. Trying to draw this animal in, or trying to kind of just act normal about our routine. Because what was weird is that when we went out that night, our dogs, were glued to our hip, and normally they're out running around trying to catch rabbits and other animals and stuff, and they weren't being playful. They were like nervous, and so we were nervous, and so we're walking around all night trying to find this large canine, whatever the hell it was. And so it's about 3 o'clock in the morning, and we decide to walk back to Homestead 1 and call it a night because it started raining a little bit of rain. And it was a full moon night. I'll never forget this because it replays in my head a lot. So we decided to backtrack our footprints from that night, and we found those large canine prints behind our prints. So the whole night it was tracking us basically. And we didn't even pick up on it. And we had NVGs and all the stuff, and we didn't pick up on it. We know the dogs picked up on it, but we didn't see it. So as we were walking down the dirt road, because we were like, okay, we need to get the hell out of here and get back to Homestead 1 because now something's stalking us. We get to that area where it says wolf growl, and I'm probably about 50 paces ahead of my partner. He's behind me with his back to the ditch, my back's to him. And he said, stop, I hear something. As I'm turning around to say what, the full moon, the clouds went over the moon, and it felt like I was walking through water, like time. It felt like time just slowed down. And I turned around to say what, and behind him, out of the ditch, we hear this god awful guttural howl. The only way I can describe it is a howl and a guttural growl happening at the same time. And out of the ditch, we see this giant black, I'll just say it, wolf, about the size of a deer, jump over the creek bed onto the dirt road, and then run west down the dirt road. The dogs go after the animal, and we go after the dogs, thinking that if they tussle with this giant animal, they're going to get torn to shreds. And what was really strange, as soon as we lost eye contact with it, because it ran so fast into the darkness, once we lost visual, the dogs also lost visual, and they stopped on a dime. Like, didn't pursue the chase. As soon as they lost visual, they just like hit a brick wall. It stopped and looked at us, and we looked at them like, "Did you see that? Like, what was that?" And so we, at the time, one of the ranch managers had a big old tractor out there, a big cat that he'd plow the road with. We jumped on the cat and we're trying to like scan the tree line to see where this animal went, and the dogs did like a 360 around us. And then we get back down onto the road and make it back to Homestead 1, and we're like doing the report and stuff from what just happened, freshly in our minds. And I remember telling the officer, because he was doing the report, I said, put in there that I didn't even see that animal because it freaked me out. And at the time, the reason why I said that is because I had an active Q clearance for the DOE, and I was planning to go back to the DOE, and I knew these reports were going somewhere up top. And if somebody said, well, Chris said he saw basically a large wolf, go ahead and yank his clearance, because I mean that's the reality of it. They would pull your clearance. That's how the DOE is. It's no nonsense. If you're going to talk about this paranormal, like they're going to pull your clearance. They just don't operate that way. So I put an initial report that I didn't even see that thing, even though I for sure saw that thing. And then
Wow.
so that happened in 2010. So I wish I had more crazy stories to go with that for all the
Well,
years after, but I don't. Besides
okay.
one other one.
Okay. So before we get to the second one,
Yeah.
you say it was the size of a deer. This is very important. And I don't know if you remember, I actually talked to you about this on X. I
Yeah.
wanted to understand, okay, how big was this thing? And was it
Yeah.
furry? What color was
It
it? Did you see its
it was
eyes? Did it have a tail? But how
yeah.
big was this thing?
I want to say it was like the size of a large buck deer.
A large, so like
Black.
the size of a horse?
No, a little bit smaller than a horse.
Okay. Okay.
Like I would say like a large sized deer. I didn't see his eyes. I do remember seeing a black tail, and I remember seeing it being black.
Well,
And it
could it
was
have been a deer?
no, because the prints that left were canine prints.
Okay. Okay. I'm just
There,
asking the
that,
questions here.
no, yeah. Yeah,
Trying to rule out everything.
it was definitely a wolf,
Could it have been
because
a coyote? I know there's coyotes out
maybe
there.
it could have been a very large coyote. Yeah, I haven't ruled that out. It could have been a very large coyote. I mean, that whole basin's got we have a lot of coyote
Yeah.
activity out there, a
Yeah.
lot. So it could have been. But what was weird is how it was following us by itself, not in a pack. And then the how it jumped over that ditch and hit the road. It just really messed with my mind how that looked in my head. It
Yeah.
didn't look normal. Like it just was weird. The whole thing was weird.
Oh,
I
yeah.
look back at that and I'm just like, what the hell was that? And then So obviously after that happened for days, we tried to go out there and get more evidence and more data and put ourselves out there. We even got brave enough to like sleep down into the southern tree line to like draw it out or to use us as bait,
You
basically
mean
to
down
create it.
here
Yeah, down there because we thought maybe it went
near the
down there.
gulch? Yeah, near the
Yeah.
gulch. Yeah, there's a lot. Once
So
you get
we
down in
actually,
those trees, it gets pretty thick down there.
oh yeah, I have a story, that dead cow story. I have a story for that. Yeah. There's a whole kill site down there from the pack of coyotes that were pulling cows in that area
Yeah, yeah.
and killing. But and yeah, so we tried for I mean for a while to try to get more data on what the hell we just witnessed. You know, it was just
Wow.
it
And
was so bizarre.
yeah, and the way these things that happen, these paranormal experiences, I would call it paranormal because it disappeared and it was too big, and
Yeah,
it was a physical, manifestation of something, but it was paranormal. But once that happens, it's like an egg cracks, right? It's like your brain
yeah.
opens up, and so you sort of realize what was that like to realize there's something really going on. This is like your second week on the ranch, right?
Second week on.
And now you're like, okay,
Um,
this shit is real.
yeah. It 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 took a while to process. Even when I went back to Vegas, I felt like I had brain fog for a while. Like it kept replaying in my head, what was that? Well, what will I encounter that again? You know, hopefully we can document it better or whatever. And it never happened again until I think it was in 2015. I was out there by myself and I had another wolf experience out there again. And this was really almost as strange as the last one.
Where?
And
Where was that?
so it was at the East Gate. If you go up to the
Hit.
East Gate, I think yeah, right there, 2015 Howl Growl.
Oh, there we go, right
No,
there.
there it is. Yeah. So in 2015, I'm sitting in a lawn chair with the dogs. At this time, now we have William, who's the last dog of our timeline. He's now on the property with us. William from the TV show, The Dog. So we have the two black labs, and now William is there, the dog, because our other border collie had passed away. So I have all three dogs sitting at my feet, and I'm in a lawn chair in that little strip of trees. And I'm looking at the
Hey,
east gate. Yeah. I'm looking east to see if any trespassers come through that area right there. Yeah.
okay.
And so I'm sitting in a lawn chair and my back is facing the eastern valley where I spent a lot of my time out there. And in 2015, the ranch was like a secondary home. You know, there was no more fear factor. It was like being back at home. Yeah, we had strange encounters from time to time, but it just became normal. Honestly, it just became normal. But it wasn't like all the time. It was like once every 4 months or 5 months, or even it wasn't consistent. But anyways, I'm sitting in a lawn chair on my phone, not really paying attention because I just felt totally relaxed. And then directly behind me, probably about 20 feet, I hear that same guttural howl growl that I heard in 2010. I came off my chair, and as I'm falling back into the dirt, I draw my weapon out to because I think this thing's jumping on me. I pull my weapon out, I hit the ground. The dogs go after the animal, and I get up, assess the situation, pull my flashlight out, and I immediately go into the brush to get the dogs. And as soon as I go into the brush, the dogs came back, like confused. So we scoured the whole area. We couldn't find a single print anywhere. It was like letting me know, hey, I'm still out here. But the fact that it howl growled at me instead of just like attacking me, it just and so I had to walk all the way back from that location back to Homestead One down that road
Yeah.
and just like on pins and needles thinking, okay, this wolf is back.
Wow.
And what am I going to do if I have to deal with this? I'm out there by myself, you know. It was just a very hair-raising moment, but it let me know that, hey, I'm just a guest out here and I need to be a little more aware of my surroundings, you know, because the ranch watches you or you are being observed out there by some, I just call it spirit. Spirit is observing you. And
Uh-huh.
I was not paying attention basically.
And you can feel it. You can feel that you're being
Oh, I
observed by
felt
spirit.
absolutely out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that happened in 2015. And
What about this footsteps we saw ghosts, saw gold light?
But yeah,
What's up with that?
so briefly in 20, was it 2012? Briefly in 2012, we went back to two-man officers just for a short time because we increased security after Jesse Ventura's TV show, um, Jesse Ventura Conspiracy Theories came out there. And Joe Rogan was out there too. So we had two different TV shows come out there. So we increased our security patrols just for liability reasons, honestly, because we didn't want anybody to get hurt on the property. And honestly, we don't. At the time, the ranch was kind of getting more and more attention, which also brought people out there that want. We actually had intel that somebody wanted to kill us. So yeah,
What?
we had intel. We had intel that there was an individual out of Roosevelt who planned to kill one of us to prove that we were aliens or prove that we were immortal. So we had all that going on. Yeah. So yeah, I know.
To prove you're immortal, like
Yeah. So we had all that going on during this timeline. And so when I put stuff on this map, it was when I had a secondary witness usually, or somebody to validate what I'm saying. So the footsteps, we were inside Homestead 1. It was me and another officer. And we had been out all day long. It's like 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. And I'm positioned in the living room on a couch with my laptop up, reading emails from just my wife and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And my partner was in the kitchen doing dishes. And I see out of the corner of my eye something walk behind him. And he stops what he's doing and he walks into the back room where we stayed at. We had these rooms in the back, even though my room was at Bigelow's or where the command center's at on the TV show. That was Bigelow's room. And then I took over that room because they had a king size bed. And also I was closer to the road so I could hear the dogs bark at night. So I'd get up and alert. So I slept in that room, but he went in the back room and then he came out and he said, "Dude, did you just walk behind me?" I said, "No, I saw somebody walk behind you." And we both looked at each other like we heard somebody walk through the trailer, walk behind him, and go into our back room. And then he went in the back room, didn't see anybody. And then I'm freaking out like, okay, there's somebody in this. Like, you try to make logical sense of what just happened. And we're thinking, is there a trespasser on property? Is somebody messing with us? You know, and we cleared the whole house and the whole area outside and didn't see anybody out there, but we definitely saw something. And the buddy that I'm talking about, he's from the back roads of Oklahoma. So he's like no nonsense type of dude. Like he didn't like to make up stories. And when he validated what I saw, we were both pretty shocked. And we just were like, what the hell? Like so bizarre. But once again, it happened so randomly. Here we are. We had been out for at least 14 hours that day, trying to document something, trying to collect data, trying to find something to put in the report feasible, or have an experience and document it. And then here we are back at Homestead 1, which is where we lived at, and that happened. It was just bizarre.
wow. What about the gold light you saw?
So the gold light, that actually happened, I want to say in 2012. I had a little GoPro camera at the time, and I was at the East Gate. Now this time I had driven. We had a little white Highlander vehicle that we used to drive from the ranch to Vernal to get our weekly supplies. So every Thursday we would drive to Vernal and go to Walmart and get our weekly supplies, and then go back to the ranch and then stay on the ranch for the week. So we had a Highlander, and it was a colder night, and for some reason I just drove I know why, because we were out there by ourselves, and I would use the Highlander. I'd park the Highlander by the road, and then I would position myself in the field. So when people came up down the road, I would hit the flashers on the vehicle and then come out the tree line, which would look like there was two of us out there. The perception is reality and security. So it made people think that, okay, they're not out here by themselves, and we're out there by ourselves. So it was little tricks to stay ahead of the curve because, I mean, honestly, like I said, we had death threats and it was a stressful time. So I'm in the Highlander and I'm in the vehicle about to head back to Homestead 1, and I see in my rearview mirror, it looked like a helicopter. landing on top of Homestead 1. It was a golden light. And I was like, what in the hell is that? So I turn around and I have my GoPro going and I'm racing towards the Homestead 1. It looked like a flare, like a golden flare coming over the trailer. And then by the time I got to the trailer, it was gone. It was like maybe 7, 8 seconds. It was in the air and then gone.
Yeah.
And it was just bizarre. I maybe it was a falling star, and maybe it was I don't know what. I mean, the only thing I could think of rationally was maybe it was a falling star, but it just looked like it was landing on top of the Homestead 1.
What did you get it on the GoPro?
I think, yeah. And that GoPro went back to Las Vegas,
Okay. Okay. So
so it's probably
you
stored somewhere.
so you sent the evidence and
Yeah,
it's just kind of disappeared. There's this whole black hole of all this stuff that you guys documented that's just not
yeah,
ever been really made public to anybody.
yeah,
Y-
yeah. And it's like one of those things where it's like it's not enough data, I guess, to support. It could have been, I don't know. I mean, like I said, but what made it interesting was that years later, Caleb and Travis Taylor report seeing the same thing basically at
right.
Homestead 1.
Right.
So
Right.
maybe it is some type of recurring phenomenon out there. But once again, it happened, and this enough for me to get my GoPro out there, hit
Yeah.
record, and I'm flying to the gate to Homestead 1 to see if there's a helicopter landing out there or what. It was just one of those
Wow.
things.
Now tell me about Homestead 2.
Yeah.
You got quite a few pictures that you take out there, and there was a lot of the pictures you have like a lawn chair. And so I
Mhm.
assume you've sat out in that in the Homestead 2 area or inside of it.
Yeah.
Um, and you've also got a photograph where there's like you guys made a like a homemade Ouija board
Mhm.
and did some experiments inside Homestead 2.
Yeah, it was actually a remote viewing experiment that we did.
Okay.
It was our higher ups had this experiment that we did out there. It was a remote viewing experiment. So partially, we would sit in the lawn chair inside Homestead 2, and we had basically a SOP platelet or a paper of like doing normal EVP sessions with spirits or whatever else, trying to collect data on the digital recorder. And so we would sit inside Homestead 2 for hours, hours out there alone. Or sometimes there'd be a secondary officer, like I said before in the early years. But eventually we're out there alone doing this sessions with flashlights and trying to document try to make contact with something that was out there, you know.
Wow. So you did EVP.
Yes. Oh
And
yeah.
did you get anything? What happened? Did you just
Nothing. I
nothing?
I honestly never got anything that was
Okay.
significant. I mean, not that I remember nothing significant, but
At that time, what did it feel like to be in Homestead 2 alone on the property with no security
yeah,
cameras? What did that feel like?
completely terrifying. Honestly, I mean, the first couple times doing it, extremely stressful and fear factor was really going because when I'm sitting in this lawn chair, my mind is racing about what if I do encounter something out of the ordinary? How am I going to physically react to it, emotionally and spiritually and physically? But also in my mind, I'm sitting, okay, if I'm sitting in this lawn chair, that means the east gate is vulnerable and somebody can get on the property and maybe possibly hurt the ranch managers, or somebody can get onto the north side of the property and do some damage or graffiti or whatever. I was always worried about somebody getting inside Homestead 1 and like ambushing me when I come back from my nighttime patrol. So all these things are racing through your head while you're sitting in this lawn chair trying to make contact with whatever's out there, you know, trying to collect data, and this is just part of the job. And it was just normal out there. After a while, you get kind of used to it, but it becomes kind of repetitive. Like, okay, I got to sit in this lawn chair for a while, a couple hours. Maybe
Yeah.
something happens, maybe something doesn't. But really, the fear factor was pretty intense back then.
Wow. So
I'm
you
not going to lie and
yeah.
pretend that it wasn't, because it was definitely intense.
Yeah, yeah, and sometimes the paranormal it doesn't want to do anything because it doesn't want to really scare you. A lot of people when they have a paranormal experience, they'll get a telepathic impression to like calm down, don't be afraid.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
this is really all happening in the first year out there because, like I said, in March of 2011, my perception shifted and my focus shifted to documenting the history that's out there, and then spending more time up on the Mesa Ridge with the dogs, like just grounding myself up there, and then not really worrying so much about the security. I mean, I worried about the security aspect, but I was really trying to figure the place out. I mean, honestly, and just what made this place so special.
Yeah. Did you have to deal with actual trespassers? Did you catch people on the property and report it to
Yeah,
the police? So you had
a
it.
couple times.
There were real
There
problems
was
with it.
one, yeah, a couple times, but for the most part, I played pretty good cop because I knew I was out there alone and I didn't want to have an ego and try to be like a pretend tough guy because the people out there know pretty much our routine when we go to sleep and when we get up. And so if you're watching the ranch, you know that what was going on. So when I did encounter trespassers, I would report to BIA, the BIA police, and they would come and take them off and fine them or whatever. But very few often did I have any issues. There was only two times where it got real dangerous real quick. And there was actually gunfire on one of the situations.
You
Not
exchanged
not by
gunfire
me.
with trespassers?
No, no, no. I should be more. I should. I'll talk more in detail about it. So what happened was, I was at the East Gate, and we had just installed those Jersey barriers that you see on the TV show that are pushed to the side.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
installed those in the front of the East Gate because somebody crashed through our gate one night and then tied a chain to our gate and ripped the gate off and drove it down the road. This is back in 20, I don't know, 12 or whatever. And so we
Yeah.
just got the Jersey barriers out there, but there was no reflective lights on the barriers yet. We hadn't put they were like brand new basically. And so I'm out there, it's about 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm about to call it a night, and I see a car barreling down the East Gate, coming towards us, coming towards me. And so I'm like, oh my God, this guy's gonna smash into these Jersey barriers and die because he's not gonna see him in time. That's how fast he was going. And as I get out to get my flashlight out to strobe him, I see police chasing him. And I strobe him and it deters him from going down the road and he flies out into it's the Garcia's property, which is right before our property.
Right
He
here.
flies out, yeah, a little bit further east.
Like right
Right,
here?
right there.
Okay.
So he flies down that field, and I'm sitting in the East Gate, and I hear cops yelling, and then I hear gunfire, ba 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 ba. And so at the time at the East Gate, there was only one little area where you got cell service because the whole ranch is a dead zone for cell service. So I was able to contact the BIA dispatch and say, "Hey, you have shots fired over here at the Garcia property. You need to get somebody down here." Because everything went silent after that happened. And I'm thinking, whoever shot somebody is coming my way now. So I have my NVGs on. I'm looking. I don't see anything. And then probably within less than a minute, 2 minutes, the whole cavalry showed up, and there was a shooting incident in that area. But yeah, I
What
was
year,
right there when it happened.
what year was that?
I want to say it was in 2013 or 12. I can't remember the exact date. We
Okay.
were out there by ourselves. I want to say of 2013.
Okay. Okay. I wanted to ask you about the selenite crystals.
Yeah,
What you've got the actual location. Now,
that's
from what I've seen on the show, there's the homestead, and then there's like a shack or some sheds and some kind of little small
mhm.
corral across the street from there. And so
Yeah, it looks like an old mining area
yeah,
almost. It
yeah. I
looks
wanted to
like
ask you about that. I was going to ask you
yeah.
about mining on the property. Was it
It
mining
looks
equipment?
it looks like the old mining area. That location was mined or something
Yeah,
because
like uh
there's this outcropping of soil that's purple or a different color than the normal mesa, and on that soil is the selenite crystals. And I actually took a bunch of those crystals and put them in Homestead 2, and I had a tuning fork, and I was trying to do like a tuning fork exercise where I would hit the tuning fork and then I would do an EVP session while speaking through the tuning fork of like, is somebody here? Maybe that frequency would hit that paranormal wavelength. And
Yeah.
once again, I don't remember getting any insane results. But
Okay. Do you still have those selenite crystals, or did you?
oh no, they're all out there. Yeah, those
Are they still out there? I mean, do they
oh
still?
yeah,
They're just laying out there.
yeah, there's a lot out there.
Okay, I've got some other questions for you. At a PhenomenaCon out there a couple of years ago, that somebody asked a question about there being a somewhere on the mesa there is like a white cross or carving of a cross and signs of graves that there it might be a burial site. Is there anything? Did you ever see any signs of any kind of a burial site at all on the ranch anywhere?
I honestly, I have not, and I was looking for stuff like that.
Okay.
I believe there probably is something out there like
I
that.
think there are actually buried.
Yeah.
If they were out there for
Canyon.
thousands of years, you're saying in
Yeah.
1,000 years, I
8,000
suspect
years.
that you've got some kind of a burial site
Oh yeah,
somewhere in this area would be my guess.
yeah.
It
I
would,
want to say it's in that probably Eastern Canyon area,
yeah,
or
yeah.
maybe on top of that mesa further. But
I think it's not just a spiritual site; it's also a sacred site
oh,
because it's
100%.
probably a burial site,
Yes,
which
it's
means
a
they would have
sacred site.
ceremonies. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. What about there's talk about these Masonic carvings, like the
Yeah,
Masonic. Where is that
that's
on the ranch?
so
Where
that's
is that?
directly across Homestead One. The it's right there. It's right up
Here?
on the mesa. Yeah, it's
Okay.
basically directly across from Homestead One.
Okay.
It's in between the top mesa and the bottom of the mesa. It's a stone up there. It has an old Mason picture. And what's crazy is that I'm missing a 2014 folder that has about 500 images of the ranch. I can't find it anywhere. And I'm looking through hard drives and thumb drives, and it has a bunch of those pictures of that Masonic symbol, and more pictures of the seven tree line and stuff.
Oh wow. They
Yeah,
also a couple of years ago did a LiDAR scan of a rock and got some petroglyph.
yeah.
Where is that located? Is that
So
same area?
that's going to be a further east, up where that one X is at. It's
Right
in
here?
that area. It's in that area right there, around
You,
that area.
do
Yeah.
you remember
In,
these
bet-
two artifacts? What were these
in between
artifacts?
that one right there that you point at, the
Yeah.
right there, that's the paleo find. That's the paleo find. That's a big one. 8,000 years ago. Paleo find.
8,000-year-old, and you dated it to 8,000 years.
Yes. It's an actual arrowhead point that's like a Clovis
Is it that
point.
big one that's got it's black and white?
No, that was found further east. This was as a golden color. I've posted a couple pictures of it before.
Okay. Wow.
But right now, Chris Roberts has all those because he's been doing more data on and more research on those artifacts.
Yeah. So can I ask you why would they just leave all these arrowheads laying around? Why would
It's
they
pretty,
did
it's
they
pretty
just lose
common.
them?
But yeah, it's very common. They use them hunting. You know, they miss game and they leave the arrowhead there. Or, walking normal.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very common, actually, of areas of occupation to find lots of. There's probably even thousands more artifacts out there that I haven't found or that are out there. But
Well,
when I first went out there, the ones I were finding were completely obvious. Like they had been on the rocks for hundreds and thousands of years. These artifacts were just laying there, and nobody saw them. I'm like, how has nobody seen these artifacts everywhere? It was mind blowing to me. And then the pictures I took, some of the ones I posted online, are the actual original area of how I found them. It's just
and they're just laying there on a rock.
they're just laying there on a rock or on the ground or the
Wow.
grindstones, and
Grindstones. It seems to me that some of these arrowheads that you saw, there was one that you showed, you've got a video on your YouTube channel of this white one that you
yes,
found. Where was that found?
that is going to be further west. And that's when I went out there in 2019 as an advisor for the TV show, or not an advisor, but I went out there to meet the new team and we shot an episode that never aired. And I found, so up on I want to say it's probably just west of the Wolf Trap area.
Like here?
That one up there by itself, that one X, that's where I found that white one, and it was pointing directly east.
Wow. It seems to me that you could analyze these arrowheads and determine their location, like the kind of rock they're from, so that
Yeah.
you could figure out where they came from, because they're not finding these rocks locally here. That
No.
there's not like white rocks where you would make that arrowhead right from some rock that was on the ranch area, right?
Right. That one is white agate, I believe. And
Right. So where did it come from? Where do they
you
get
could
white
find
agate?
there is a lot of agate out there, and then you went to Basin.
Yeah,
There,
yeah.
there is. I mean, you could probably find some. I know I found not. I don't think I remember finding white agate, but I found pretty close to, white milky agate out there. Not area specifically, but in the basin itself.
Up by the mountains in the Uintah
Yeah.
Mountains.
Yes,
Yeah.
that white arrowhead that I found in 2019. It was so bizarre. So what happened was, it was like my third day being out there. We had already stopped filming and whatever. And I asked the team and the production crew, I said, "Hey, do you mind if I go on one of my normal hikes that I used to do?" And they're like, "Yeah, go ahead." They were really busy. I said, "Do you want to bring somebody along to do like some guerrilla style video just in case if I find something?" And nobody, like, everybody just blew me off. I was like, "Okay, whatever." I mean, I'm not out there for TV show. I don't care. The only reason why I went out there was to pass over important data to the team. I didn't care about the TV show stuff. It was just to point the to take the 6 years of that I've collected and pass it over. So I go out that evening, that late afternoon, and I'm hiking around. I take pictures. I have my camera with me. I got that picture still from that whole trip. And as I'm walking, I look down and I see that arrowhead, and I was like, "This is what's crazy." I said out loud in my head, I said, "What do you want me to show them?" And then I kid you not, I walk about 10 paces and that arrowhead is there. That's exactly verbatim what happened. So I took that arrowhead. I couldn't believe that it was that pristine of an arrowhead. I took it down to Thomas and Candace, uh, the caretakers at the time, who have backgrounds in archaeology, and showed them. I said, "I just found this up on the mesa, and this is super important to what's really going on out here." And they took it, and Brandon, I think he framed it and they documented it, and they did it's documented in a frame, so it's part of the history, it's part of the lore. But that's exactly what happened.
Wow. Wow. There's a lot
Unbelievable
going
find. I mean,
on.
it was unbelievable to find that point like that. It was a bird point, but to have those notches on it, it was
Yeah.
just, I've never found a specimen like that ever in my
Yeah,
whole. And oh, good.
well, I was just going to say, you've got like a 30-second clip on your YouTube channel where you show
Yeah,
like finding it, which is just it's like a magical moment now that I know the story.
it was unbelievable. It was just like, because this is in 2019. So in 2016, when I left the property, I had a pretty good idea what was going on out there. For me personally, it was the indigenous history, which was the explanation to the property. And I was perfectly fine with that. And I felt like that was the most important aspect of the property and the most provable aspect of the property when I left there. So there was years where nobody had been looking for the stuff. So when I went back out there, it was like being back out there all over again, because there was stuff everywhere. And I'm like, holy cow. But I took that video of me finding it, and it blows my mind how
Yeah.
pristine that point was.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, when was your first paranormal experience?
I would say my first paranormal experience, there's a house in Marion County, not too far where I grew up at, called the Poorhouse. It's this big limestone, um, farmstead house built in 1886, I think, or 1819. I can't remember. I've been thinking about going back out there to photograph it. So, anyways, what happened was a substitute teacher came to my high school, and at the end of the class asked if anybody would help her. She and her husband bought this new property in Marion, and they were going to turn to a bed and breakfast, and they needed help. So me and my buddy, my best friend, volunteered to go help her. This is back in 95, 95. And so we go to this house that's out in the middle of nowhere. It's this huge limestone house. And remind you, I never even thought about ghosts or paranormal or, of course, I was an 80s kid, so I'm into like Star Wars and sci-fi and ghosts and all. I'm into that genre, but I never thought about the reality of it, basically. And so we go to this house, and there's a cemetery in the front yard of this house where people died that were buried on this property. Yeah. So we're like, what is this? And I remember thinking to myself, nobody's going to come out here and stay at this place because it is extremely creepy and it's off the beaten path also. But whatever, we're young kids. I think I was a junior in high school at the time, going into my senior year. And so me and my friend go into this house. The teacher's there, the substitute teacher's there. And it was like walking through a portal, basically. You walk through the threshold and it felt like I am somewhere where I'm not supposed to be. Like it felt like really dark, dark, bad stuff. And I remember looking at my friend and we're just like, this doesn't feel right. So she had these rooms on the third floor or second floor, third floor, like 8 rooms that, because this place used to be like a lodging area. It was like an insane asylum at one point. It had like all this crazy history. Yeah. If you look at Marion County Poorhouse, there's like a vlog about it or a article about it. Anyways, so she wanted us to put carpet in these rooms and make them where people can live. And so me and my friend would get to work and we would hear footsteps down the hallway, bop, 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 bop. And we hear doors close. I mean, typical poltergeist activity. And we're just like, what the hell? But the weirdest event was we were on the second floor in this study area that she had. And she had this huge, immaculate garden that she was working on. That her whole thing was, live off the grid type thing. And she had a little living quarters down the basement. And so it was just us three on the property. Me, my buddy, and the teacher was in the basement. And I remember we were both looking out the window and we see this lady gardening in the garden. We thought it was her name is Miss Mar. We thought it was Miss Mar. All of a sudden we turned to the door and there was Miss Mar standing in the door with 2 Pepsis in her hand. And we look at the garden and there's nobody out there. And my friend turned like pale white and he goes, we're both, he's like, is somebody else out here? And she's like, no, I've been in the basement. And we're like, we just saw somebody in the garden. And she just was like nonchalant about it and like put the Pepsis down and like walked away. Well, other weird things were happening that like poltergeist stuff. Fast forward, we stopped working there because it was getting too crazy. But we would go out there and visit her because we felt bad for her because she was out there by herself. And we got jobs in Hillsborough, Kansas at the McDonald's out there. And this story sounds kind of crazy, but it all comes together. So it was a Halloween night, and we're closing down the store, and we're telling ghost stories with like the older, people working there. And this lady, she was the manager at the McDonald's we worked at. She starts talking about how she used to belong to a devil worshiping cult out here. And we're like, what? And she goes, yeah, we used to like worship the devil and do seances and sacrifice animals. And we're just like, what are you talking about? And then she goes, and we used to do it at this old farmstead house in Marion that had a cemetery in the front yard. And me and my buddy, he was working with me at the time, looked at each other and we said, we know that house, blah, 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 blah. And she's like, yep. We would go there and there was a big blood pentagram on the basement floor. And they would do all this like demonic dark stuff. And it just validated our experiences because it felt evil and they were apparently doing evil stuff there. That was my first real encounter with, I guess you want to call it the paranormal.
Wow.
And it's 100% true story.
Oh yeah.
I've been out there. I plan on going back out there and photograph. I'll post the pictures on I'll send you the pictures of the place when we're done talking here.
I post them on X.
Okay. I'll post them on X.
Post them on X, and so I can comment. We can share them with other people.
It was a hair-raising, and you know what's weird? Back in 2023, I took some buddies I work with out here, we had talked about ghost stories. And I said, I grew up in this area. I'll take it to a real haunted house. And we went out there, and the lady that used to live out there, she still was occupying the house. Or I should say she lived close by, but she still owned the house. And she met us out there and gave us a tour again. And one of the females that were with us had like a real bad episode out there where she felt like she was being possessed or
Oh my
something.
gosh.
And we got the hell out of there.
Wow. So you, I
So
mean,
it,
your nervous system, from my perspective, your nervous system is attuned. You understand the demonic and the negative,
oh yeah,
and then you're on Skinwalker Ranch, and now you're experiencing the positive. Skinwalker Ranch was a positive experience for you, right?
it was negative for a while, but then it turned positive. So
Okay.
I
Yeah.
learned out
Okay.
there, yeah, there was a testing ground for me personally because I realized if you stare at the shadows long enough, the shadows will stare back. And if you focus on the positives focus back. So my focus was if you want to go out there and deal in the darkness, you can at any time. It's out there. But I focused on the positive of, and it shows through my photography. I can show you the darkness of that property during that time when I was out there, and I can show you my evolution of my photography, how it got better and brighter towards the end because I became at peace with what was out there.
Yeah.
I knew there was some negative stuff out there, but I knew I felt spiritually grounded and secure and
Yeah.
protected. And so my photography shows that. It shows the early years of the darkness and it goes into the light. That photography was never meant to be seen by anybody, and I'm glad to share it now because it's a part of who I am now.
Oh, it's wonderful. It's very unique. It's very, very special.
Thank you.
You've got a style all your own, and I absolutely love it.
I
And
appreciate that.
and
Thank
and
you.
you and the stories that you're able to tell these stories. You show like 4 images. You do your photograph. What is it? Throwback Thursdays.
Yeah, so yeah, I take
And
you back.
yeah, and you're telling a little story there, and you got the dogs and everything. I
Yeah,
absolutely love your photography. I have some of it myself. I used it as a screensaver for years.
yeah.
Some of your photographs out there, so it's wonderful.
Thank you.
I understand. No, there are rumors that in the Uintah Basin that there's a long-standing, going back at least 100 years, that there is a demonic cult out there that digs up bodies in the Roosevelt Cemetery and the other little pioneer cemeteries out there. I
I've
don't.
heard of
Did you
that
ever?
too.
Did you heard that? You've heard that as well?
Yeah, me and Caleb talked about that before. He's encountered them personally, those people. Or
So it's real.
I
You
guess
can confirm
it's
that.
real. It is
Okay.
real. There is a yeah. I have never encountered that. I've been to some locations out there where there was probably some stuff, some darkness dabbling,
Yeah.
but I don't
Yeah.
stay around very long. I
Right. Right.
always do a tobacco offering everywhere I go. So I do this grounding protocol when I go to the Uintah Basin, even when I go to areas that I believe are sacred sites. Specifically, I'll go to McKee Springs every time I come to the Uintah Basin, which I try to come out there at least twice a year.
Yeah.
And I do a grounding protocol where I go to McKee Springs and I take my shoes off and I get there when it's still dark out. And I find a location at McKee Springs, which I feel is sacred to me. I take my boots off, I'll ground myself, and I'll breathe and meditate as the sun's coming over that mountain there. And as soon as I feel the sun, I'm projecting in my head my intentions for the day,
Yeah.
and it kind of helps me get focused on my photography because I'm not just trying to get the cool, Ansel Adams shots. I'm trying to get the small detail shots that people overlook all the time.
Right.
And then
Right.
and
Right.
so I do this grounding protocol where I do that, and then throughout my photography session, I'll grab two stones from that area. Nothing out of the ordinary, just like two stones that kind of speak to me.
Yeah.
And I'll do a tobacco offering, say some words, and then when I come back to Kansas, I'll do another meditation session in my office, holding those stones, and then project
Yeah.
myself back to that timeline, and then go to my photography and find images that I kind of forgot I took. Not that I forgot I took, but I kind of go back and go through my images, and that's where I do some of that flip photography that you see. That's where I start doing the
Okay.
mirror photography,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's how I do that.
So let's zoom into the Uintah Basin because I'd like you to show me on this Google Earth.
Yeah.
We're out the Uintah Basin now, right? There's Skinwalker Ranch.
Mhm.
Where's that spring?
So McKee Springs is actually further west past Vernal. Now, the protocol I was talking about, I used to do on Skinwalker Ranch.
Okay.
Long, long time ago. I mean, 2012 and on, basically.
Okay.
But
Okay.
McKee Springs is actually east of Vernal, Utah, about 30 minutes. It's closer to Dinosaur National Park.
Okay. So you drive. Oh, I know where that's at. So you drive all the way out here and you go in
Yep.
the spring in the morning.
Yep.
Okay.
And that's where I do my protocol right there. Yep.
Every single time you go out there.
Every time. I even took
Wow.
in 2023, I took my kids out there and we all did it together.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was
While,
cool.
while I've got this map up, so let's talk a little bit really quickly about Blind Frog Ranch.
Yeah.
So there's Blind Frog Ranch, right? There we go. And then there's there's the water where they had the frogs come out, right? And this is the magnetic place. And then there's the bead site, right?
The bead site, yeah.
What's the weirdest thing that you've experienced on Blind Frog Ranch? You personally?
Nothing. I haven't experienced anything negative or positive. I mean, that area, especially the bead site, it's a sacred site. I mean,
I wanted to ask about the bead site because I think that's a sacred site as well.
It is.
It's bizarre that they've got these beads that are from, I think they say they were from Italy or something like that. And what are they doing? And they go up there and they've got these little dollar bills and they've got all these coins.
Yeah.
What it looked to me like it's an active sacred site that the Utes out there know there's something there and they don't tell the whites. This is one thing they don't really talk about on these shows is the cultural gulf between, there are some Utes out there that interact with the whites, but there's a whole subset of Utes out there that won't talk to whites.
Yeah.
They've got their own culture out there and they're doing their own thing. And
I mean, they understand the land and they respect the land. And people go out there and don't respect the land. And when you don't respect the land bites back. I mean, that's the reality of it.
Yeah.
When I first went out there, I went out there in 2021. It was just me, James Kin, and Dwayne Oliger, and we were out there for a week, just us three, just up and down the hills in the mountain area, and just exploring, just looking for. This is before TV show stuff. I mean, I didn't even know about a TV show. This is just me and James doing some Scooby-Doo adventures, basically out there. I always tell people the Uintah Basin is a never-ending Scooby-Doo adventure, and we were really good doing some Scooby-Doo adventure stuff, but we were looking for artifacts, or we're looking for anything, treasure or whatever. That's the big rumor out there is treasure. And we were looking for it, and that bead site is definitely sacred ground.
So what do you think the actual Native Americans do there at the bead site? What do they do? Are these prayers? Is this?
Yeah.
Why would
prayer?
Do you think it's a burial? Is it a burial site? Why?
It might be.
My impression is it's so sacred, they're not going to tell the whites what it is.
Exactly. And also, speaking of sacred sites, have you seen those images I posted of the hanging animal skins on the poles?
Yes, the Skinwalker Ranch. Yeah.
Yes, on the west side.
Yeah.
That's technically off the property. That is also a sacred site.
If you look on the maps, on the plots, all of the land around there, a lot of it is Native American land still. It's owned by the tribe. Yeah. I've got another question for you. So there's Blind Frog Ranch, right? And there's a canyon. I don't even remember the name of it. So there's White Rocks, right? There's a cave there's a White Rock. Do you know there's a cave in White Rocks?
Yes.
Yeah, I've been to that cave. As a kid, we went into that cave. There's supposedly another canyon up here, and I can't remember which one, and it's Native American land. You have to get their permission. And apparently I saw some things online, I talked to some people, and this little canyon, and it's got a gate, and you can't get in the canyon unless you've got permission, but they call it Skinwalker Canyon.
Oh yes.
You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do.
Am I right about what its location? It's like somewhere in here.
Yeah, it's around there. I've been up there. I took photographs up there too.
So you've got permission and went up there?
We didn't go onto that land. We went next to it.
Okay.
Photograph from afar. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's called Skinwalker Canyon because that's like where they live.
or it's called Dark Canyon or
Dark Canyon is another name
Dark
for it.
Canyon. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Now the whole Skinwalker legend certainly overlaps with, they've been have people on the show, and they've even had an episode of Beyond Skinwalker Ranch down in Four Corners, where they talk about there's some demonic rituals performed by native Navajo, and they have to kill somebody they love, and they learn these dark rites, and then they actually become these shape-shifting skinwalkers.
Yeah.
And so there might be these werewolves up here that are some kind of a dire wolf that live in the mountains. That's my theory, is there might be dire wolves up there, right?
That might be, man.
Does that make sense?
It does. People think it's crazy talk, but when you go up there physically and you spend time up there, you'll feel it.
Yeah,
You'll
that's
have
my
an
guess.
experience.
But there's also these, humans that have turned into skinwalkers to some degree. And my family and some other families I know in the Uintah Basin, there's also rumors of some kind of a dark cult that practice rituals of they're able to carve animals up while they're still alive. And it's these, and they've done it on humans as well. I don't want to get too gruesome here, but there's also that as well. And they, like when the whites first came out to the Uintah Basin, there was some problems between the whites and how they were mistreating the native people out there. And then some of the white soldiers were found carved up. And it was, but they were people dressed as skinwalkers, and came and got these white guys and exercised revenge on them for the way they had been mistreating the natives.
Yeah, I think it's referred to. I think it's partially the Black Hawk Wars.
Yeah, that as well. So there's a lot of cultural stuff going on out there. And
There is.
as soon as you come over, you come drop into Duchesne, right? As soon as you drop into Duchesne, it's a different place out there. The Uintah Basin is its own.
It's a whole different world.
It is. It's a whole different world. There's a spiritual component to it. There's a creepy component. Have you heard about the poltergeist activity in Randelette? You see how Randelette is right here?
Yeah, I've been over there.
So this is Skinwalker Ranch, and this right here, this property here is the Betts farm.
Okay.
And my experience was I rode a horse out here, went across this fence line, and then right here on the corner of the property is where I saw a craft on the ground, and I saw a being in a hazmat suit.
Wow.
And I was on a horse, and it stood up, and it pointed what looked like a hairdryer at me, and just with these bright colors. And I don't know how long that went on. I was kind of zoned out on the horse. The horse was completely calm, but I was freaking out. And when I came to, the craft was in the air, and it just shot up over the mesa really fast. And I turned around and just rode that horse and went back, rode across the fields, went through the fence here, and got back to the farm and told my family. And then
what year was that?
That was 1980.
Wow.
I was 11 years old. There's a fence. It was right here. I was walking the horse along the fence line because of the gulch, right?
Yeah.
And right about here, I smelled some sweet, sickly maple syrup.
Like pancake syrup, right? Yeah.
It smelled like a wonderful breakfast with pancake and bacons and syrup, right, and butter. And they just lured me in, and then I came right around here, and that craft was like right here.
No kidding.
That's where it was, yeah. And then the funny thing is, I told my uncle, and there was a lot of drama in my life because of that. And I got bullied, and I didn't talk about it. I didn't actually go public until I talked. Do you remember me talking to you a couple of years ago?
Yep.
And I said, I finally want to tell my story publicly.
Yes.
And your advice, I talked to Ryan Skinner, I talked to Shannon DeSalvo, and some other people. And I said, I'm thinking of coming out publicly, but I know I'm going to get, eviscerated in the public for this.
Yeah.
Should I do this? And you told me, everybody said, you got to be true to yourself and tell the truth.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you feel like you need to now come out after all these years, my name is in The Hunt for the Skinwalker.
Oh,
my name is in that book. And the original article in the Deseret News in 1996, a reporter called me, and I talked to him, and he put my name in the newspaper, and I asked him not to. And so I was harassed That's a whole backstory. Right? This interview is about you, not me. But while we're here, I'm just showing you. But
Yeah.
the thing I wanted to tell you was, so this is where the farm was. So my uncle Grant, when the story came out about the Shermans, this reporter went and asked them. He went around to all the neighbors of the ranch, right, and asked them if they'd ever had any paranormal activity. And my uncle, it was supposed to be a family secret. He told him, he said, "Yeah, I got a nephew that had this experience in 19." And so he called me on the phone. So the next time I went out to the Uintah Basin for our family reunion, I pulled my uncle aside. I said, "Uncle Grant, why did you tell this reporter my experience?"
Right.
And you know what he told me? He said, "I'll tell you what, Dean." He said, "When this whole thing with the Shermans went down, I thought that they were making it up. I thought that he was making this up because I think he lived in White Rocks or something, and he bought the ranch, he bought the Myers Ranch, and he wasn't being successful. And I thought he was making up these stories because he was going to flip the property, right?" And that's my uncle Grant said, "But you know what? I talked to him, and I kind of wondered about it." And he said, "And then Dean," he said, "I had a cow. It was a pregnant cow, and it was right in the corner of that property, right here on this fence line, under these bushes." He went out there because this didn't used to be this round thing. It used to be just a field for grazing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he said he went out there, and the cow it was a heifer. It was about ready to give birth. It was in the process of giving birth, but he had the herd of cows out here, so he quickly herded the cows back to the corral, which is right here, right? And then he had a four-wheeler, and he drove the four-wheeler back out there to help birth this calf, and the cow was gone.
Really?
And he said there's no way the cow could not have gotten up. There was no sign that it had even been there, and it was gone. Now, he told me that in 1996, the fall of 96 is when he told me that. But, and this was before the report, it was just the reporter that year. And then my uncle had that experience in 1996, and he said it's all true. Yeah.
I believe it.
Yeah. So, that it's yeah. And it's followed me ever since. I've documented this. I've had, shadow experiences, hitchhiker effects
Oh yeah.
over the years. And it's never left me. And I've had all kinds of, negative experiences as a result of what's happened out there. Yeah.
Yeah. We had a lot of negative things happen. Well, to me too, but also people on my team also had negative things happen. So it's real. I mean, the phenomenon we would call it, it's real. There's pros and cons to it.
It hasn't followed you home.
Yeah. We had a hitchhiker experience in 2011 that was documented. Me and my wife. Yeah.
In your house?
It was a little apartment in Vegas. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, yeah. I really don't like talking about it too much, but
same here. I don't like talking about it.
Yeah. It was weird. It was,
yeah.
I try to stay pretty grounded because of my professional background of all the stuff I did before coming to the Skinwalker, with the Air Force and the DOE and even for Groom Lake and stuff. So when it comes to like the nuts and bolts of the phenomena, I feel pretty grounded in that conversation because of where I used to work. But when you enter the other side of the spiritual aspect and the things you can't see, I don't discount it, and I'm not going to be arrogant to say, "Oh, that's just a bunch of." No, I'm a firm believer. I'm a firm believer that there is some life out there in the universe, but also when it comes to the paranormal, there's something definitely real to that aspect. And once you kind of open up your perception to that, you allow that energy to come in, and it's about how you balance that energy.
Yeah. Chris, what I love about you on X, I give a heart to everything you post on X. For the last 3 or 4 years while I followed you, you are like the best voice of sanity when it comes to this whole bizarre, full disclosure, UAP, all that nuts and bolts stuff and what goes on between Mick West and everybody else.
Yeah.
Your background in the Air Force is just, and what you have a handle on this whole thing. And now we've got perfect timing, Chris. You've seen what the President of the United States said last week. And your take on it, I think, is the most sane take on this whole thing.
Yeah. I just feel like I feel like if there was ever a time in our history where we made contact with something, it would be thousands of years ago when when our ancestors were deeply connected to the rhythms of the earth and the universe, and there was no distractions, there was no BS. That's the entities that would come here spiritually or maybe in craft and make contact with that. Not now, not now when we're blowing each other up and killing each other for different types of religious beliefs. Now, maybe the artifacts have been recovered from back then, but when it comes to like modern day crashes and especially crash and recovery, that's my biggest pet peeve. I've been on several crash and recovery missions for the Air Force, and I know the optics and the protocols for that whole program. And so people in the UFO community love to toss the crash and recovery stuff around like it's some type of thing out of a movie, and it is the furthest thing away from a movie. It is real. It don't even get me started on it, but I try to keep a very grounded approach when it comes to this topic. I'm a believer that there is something to it, the phenomenon, but a lot of this is people don't understand the counterintelligence and the need to know protocols. And people have tanked their professional careers violating those protocols. And then when you get violated, the ego gets involved. And then they think that, well, I should have a need to know because somebody told me I had the clearance to go and look for this stuff. And that's not how it works. If when it comes to special access programs, if your name's not on that special access log, you're not getting in. That's just how it is. And I wish I could have some crazy story where it's like I saw alien aircraft or alien bodies, and I never did.
You mentioned crash retrieval. Let's be clear. When you say crash retrievals, you mean like an aircraft crashed.
Yes, I mean,
U.S.
I've been
military
on.
craft, not an
Yeah,
alien craft, right?
yeah, I've been on helicopter crashes, fighter jet crashes. I've even been on drone crashes before, and there is strict protocols in all those events. And I can only imagine if an alien spaceship crashed on Earth, the protocols wouldn't shrink; they would expand tremendously, and there'd be all hands on deck situation, and that location would be locked down for decades, being analyzed.
Yeah,
It's not like the movies. It just isn't. And
yeah, no,
it's it just I have a serious problem with it because
yeah.
it's like, and I spent all that time on the Nellis Range. And to say this, and I talked about this on X. In 1999, myself and four other airmen were on a crash and recovery mission right outside of Groom Lake by Rachel, Nevada, on a dry lake bed where two F-15s crashed. They actually collided and crashed. And we were out there for a whole week. And while we were out there on one night, we witnessed technology being tested that was at the time way advanced. It looked like a laser guided drone system was being tested. And this is the 99. But and the two guys that were with us, the two sergeants that were with us, were on the F-117 stealth project as a security role. So they were like, what was that? And we're all like watching this stuff go down. But at the time, maybe we had the professional fortitude not to go whistleblow because we understood what we saw was in support of air power global dominance, which is the whole mission of the Air Force and now Space Force. That's the real next agenda is Space Force and space war. That's going to happen. And so how that's achieved is by keeping everyone in the dark. You're not going to know about new technology until they have to actually roll it out. And that's just the reality of it. And over the years, I've just scratched my head at some of these people that are viewed as UFO messiahs or whistle or whatever. And I'm like, no, you worked at a test facility and you saw technology that you were not read into, just like I was not read into the stuff that we saw in 99. But we didn't go and tell everybody because it just was when you work in a testing facility area, you're gonna see shit in the sky. You're gonna experience weird shit. That's just how it is. And all the people that always say, it's not ours, they wouldn't know that because they're not. I always this is how I break it down is you can be the smartest person in the room, you can have the most four-star general, the president, the craziest titles. What matters then in this conversation is where have you physically worked? If you haven't worked anywhere where new technology is being developed and tested, like for the DOE or Lockheed or Dugway Proving Ground or Area 51, then you don't have a need to know. Then you're just an outsider looking in. And from my experience and from what my observations were when I got hired with BAASS, there was a lot of individuals who had spent their whole careers from the outside looking in. And that's just the honest truth about it. And that may hurt some people's feelings, but that's the reality of it. I came in and I was like, what are these guys talking about? Because my role in that environment was safeguarding and protecting those assets. And while most people saw this much of the picture, the security detail sees this much of the picture because our role is to protect all these special access programs. So
Right.
you may be an engineer or a scientist and you're only seeing a sliver of the pie, while my role, we were seeing for the majority, the whole pie, because that was our job, was to protect the assets. Stealth fighters, any PL1 resource from nuclear weapons to stealth fighters to anything that's considered a priority level 1 resource is always going to have a physical guard nearby, or 2 or 3 or 4, depending on the resource. It's not going to be like in the movies. It's always like a UFO is in a hangar just by itself or whatever. That would never happen unless
Right.
that UFO is being used as an integrity test. Because I'll say this, when you work for the DOE or 51, you are constantly being evaluated on your mental state and your mouth. If you're running your mouth too much or if you're saying stuff, and they'll put things out there to see if you're going to talk.
Oh, right.
And
They'll put fake stuff out there, and then if
you
somebody
know,
says, "I saw this," they know
yep,
you're the
and
link.
they'll yank your clearance away. They'll yank it immediately. It's an integrity test. Happens
Wow.
all the time, and it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop after you get your clearance. It actually ramps up.
Does that explain Bob Lazar?
I think it does because before him, this is from me working with that organization. Before that individual showed up, there was already 10,000 DoD contractors and employees who worked out there prior to him. And you're trying to tell me he's the only guy that's going to whistleblow and talk when you have 10,000 people, and this is in the 90s. I'm not saying he didn't work out there. He probably did work out there, but he knew enough of the lingo to like he knew that the days are that new craft was being tested. That's pretty much common knowledge out there. Even the locals in Rachel, Nevada know that. But when his story kind of falls apart is when Robert Bigelow talks about it on his Jeffrey Mislove interview, where Robert Bigelow says that he employed a Lazar and gave him a warehouse in Vegas to continue his work. And what does Lazar do? He uses that warehouse to store furniture. I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me. It just seems like it just doesn't add up. So as much as I want to believe the only thing I do like about Bob's stories, he talks about the recovered archaeological craft or whatever. That's something I believe in.
Really?
I haven't seen that. I mean, I haven't seen that, but I believe in that narrative because that would make sense. Because like I said, 4,000 years ago, maybe something crashed here and we recovered it now. Who knows?
So what do you think that the Pentagon is sitting on and the contractors?
I think honestly, it's just a bunch of bullshit. I think a lot of it is, and there is some truth sprinkled inside of it, but there's so many layers of just nonsense that have been regurgitated over and over again that it muddies the water so much. Like there's a good book to read. It's by Annie Jacobson called Area 51. And she interviewed like 50 or 60 of the road runners, that people that first started Area 51. And it talks about how the CIA was really using the narrative to mask our technology being tested and developed, which makes perfect sense.
Right.
But obviously, throughout the years, stories grow. People have weird experiences, and those can be used or weaponized. I say that, but I
Yeah.
also believe that there is a real phenomenon to some of this stuff. So I don't know. Hopefully, I heard that Trump was briefed about the Greys and Nordics or whatever. I hope that that evidence that he was shown gets presented to the public so we can see it too.
Or is this just a big disinformation campaign? If anything's released officially from the government and they start releasing photographs and videos, aren't we just going to know it's AI generated?
Yeah,
They've had a disinformation campaign going on. It goes back to the Cold War,
Yeah.
And as soon as they developed stealth technology, when did the stealth technology actually start? Right?
Oh God.
You get the stealth, bomber. And when was that actually made public? Like in the 90s.
In the
They must have been
90s.
working on that in the 50s, right?
And yeah, they were. As a matter of fact, here's where I spend a lot of my time at nowadays. I watch every single Space Force or Space Command speech or meeting or conversation. I listen to all the, I've probably listened to thousands of hours in the last 3 years of Space Force and Space Command's lingo and how they talk. And not once has extraterrestrial threat has ever come up. They're always talking about the threats with China and Russia, and that's the and no ma I'll say this, no matter what gets disclosed tomorrow, let's say they roll out the alien bodies and the alien tech and it's legit. The Space Force mission is not gonna change. It's gonna be, okay, cool, we have that. We're gonna still fight China and Russia in the future, and that's our focus. That's the reality of it. Because I listen to these guys who are top tier military professionals, and they're talking, some of the lingo they're saying has spilled into the UFO community and has been spinned. And I'm like, okay, I know exactly what he's talking about because from my operational background, that makes sense. And I still talk to all my friends of the DOE, and when I talked about UFOs and stuff, they almost laughed me out of the room. Like it's just like we all, when we graduated the academy, the first thing you do is like, where's the aliens at? Where's the bodies at? And the old timers are just like shaking their heads, like, come on. I mean, a good reality is people need to watch that documentary Downwind about the Nevada test site testing and how we basically poisoned the entire Southwest
Yeah.
of the United States. And you're trying to tell me that aliens didn't stop that when we killed everything out there and humans and the ground sources and the water sources. And I mean, I watched that documentary and I just kept thinking, where are the aliens at? Where are they at? It just
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah. And I wonder if the whole full disclosure movement is actually a disinformation campaign to confuse our adversaries, right? Does that make
I think
sense?
so.
Because the
I think so.
Chinese and the Russians are probably going, is the tic tac, is that American tech or is that alien tech?
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, that definitely. When that first whole thing came out, I was like, that makes sense. We had pilots reporting stuff that didn't have a need to know, that observed technology that was being tested in the ocean. When that first story came out, I'm like, okay, that tracks with my story and '99, where we saw technology being tested that we didn't have a need to know about,
Yeah.
but we just gonna go talk about it because this is how it was. But I will say this, like going back to your story, what makes the Uintah Basin unique, and I think James Keating has a really good a theory or a hypothesis or a theory about it. He believes there's certain areas of the basin where the past, present, and future overlap. They're either magnetic anomalies or whatever. He believes that there is an areas out there where the past, present, and future overlap. So that may explain the direwolf experiences. That may explain your experience or other people's experiences.
And
I
the
think.
Shermans,
And the
they
Shermans.
saw like a portal in the air and they saw
Right.
it was like nighttime and it was daytime in this portal.
Yeah.
They had
And
this
some of
big,
the
huge
nits.
Winnebago hovering over the. If you actually look at it, makes a lot of sense. I recently did an interview with Dr. Eric Wargo, who has written books on on time, basically, and his last book's called Time Faring, and he talks about how theoretically there's a technology where you could actually have a building.
It's not a ship. It's an inside of a chamber.
That's what I mean.
Like
There's-
you have
yeah,
a laboratory
Yeah.
with a circular chamber, which is your wormhole chamber, and you generate a wormhole in that chamber, and that chamber becomes one mouth of the wormhole with the other mouth projected somewhere else. That other mouth, from a distance, it's going to look just like a spherical or cylindrical, whatever shape that chamber is. It's going to look like that turned inside out. But then as you got closer to it,
Right.
only then it would like really look weird and you'd pass right into it.
If this shows up on Skinwalker Ranch, they would see that in the sky, but the people looking out the window of the craft would actually be the people.
But looking into the wormhole.
They're looking into the wormhole, and
Yes.
when you look at it, they're looking at you.
Yes.
It looks like they're inside the wormhole.
Right.
And
Yeah.
he's talked to physicists and he's talked to scientists, and I even talked to him in the interview. I said, well, maybe in the future, they built one of these somewhere in the Uintah Basin.
Yeah.
And it's causing some kind of time dilation. That's interesting. He would say the same thing.
That's interesting. That I mean, that could be. I'm not ruling out. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like the the people that are out there physically spend time out there understand that there is some weird stuff out there that happens. You
Yeah.
just kind of scratch your head about it, and just some people just move on, and some people, it's just there's some life changing stuff that happens out there. I know and you know it as well.
Yeah.
And
And at the same time, there's people that live their whole lives out there and they're like, there's
and
nothing going on.
Yeah.
They think it's all bullshit.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
and it's hard to explain, it's wow,
Yeah,
there's
it
just so
is,
much
it
to
is.
this.
I even like piggyback to the whole UAP topic. I think a lot of it is bullshit, but I still believe that there is maybe a possibility of archaeological discoveries that maybe we did. I'm not ruling that out. That could be a possibility. I just think that the majority of stuff that we see in today's climate is just counterintelligence stuff being pushed down people's throats.
Well,
But
but there are reports, where people like over Chicago, there was that craft over Chicago. There were people that took pictures and the military shows up and they take everybody's cameras and they confiscate everything. You've heard those stories, they're like the Virginia thing down in Brazil where
Yeah.
supposed military came and they got the craft and they got the bodies and they flew it away.
Yeah.
Do you think that's true? Do you think that at least there, at a minimum, there's a part of the military that goes and just collects all this information? Because if it really was if it was military tech, they would do that, right?
yeah, for sure.
If a bunch of
100%.
people got video of a stealth fighter in the 90s, they would have confiscated all that footage, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. For sure. For sure. A lot of it is advanced technology, and I think if you even look at the history of Project Oxcart with the SR-71, when we crashed those birds, and the recovery missions for some of those stories were pretty wild, and we went to great lengths when Russia or China, even a downed submarine one time, a nuclear submarine. I think they used even Howard Hughes as a cover. They used him one time to go retrieve this stuff. So it's not uncommon for the government to use private industries to retrieve technology that they can reverse engineer. It doesn't necessarily mean it's alien technology. It just means it's adversarial technology.
Yeah.
But I believe it. I mean, I don't know. I hope that there's something does come positive with this whole disclosure thing, and but I just have a bad feeling about it. I feel like whatever they're going to produce is going to be ripped to shreds.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a
Yeah.
shit show. It's going to be a shit
I
show.
think-
They're going to
Yeah.
release something. You know how it is on X.
Yeah.
The military is going to release something, a photograph or something. And then everybody in the community on both sides is going to jump on it, right?
Yeah.
You're going to have the debunkers and you're going to have the fans, and they're going
Yeah.
to start arguing over the photograph. And then they're going to release something a week later.
Yeah.
And they're just going to drag this out. And it's just going to be a
That'll be the
distraction
next
and
70
drama.
years. Yeah, it'll be the
Yeah.
next 70 years. Will be that, and then in that 70 years, you're going to see Space Force build up, and and that's the smoking gun that nobody's paying attention to. Is I challenge people in the UFO community to go listen to just 2 hours of any Space Command or Space Force speeches or talks, and listen to how they're talking. And they're just like laser focused about, we're going to be fighting China and Russia in space. Space dominance is the key. And I'm just like, holy shit, it's going to happen. That's the whole thing, is who can maneuver in space quickly and take out other people's satellites, because whoever controls the high ground controls the playing field below. And we want that, because that's just how America is. We want global power and global control. And that's what makes us an elite fighting force. And that's just the reality of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Meanwhile, there's really something going on there. The paranormal is real at the same time.
Meanwhile, we got petroglyphs from 4,000 years ago that show that something was going on, and humans were like, "Hey, we'll write this down so people can, stay connected." And what do? We took down those petroglyph sites, and we forget about them, and we forget about the indigenous cultures and their history and how these people were truly. And when I say indigenous, I'm not just talking about Native Americans. I'm talking about, we all come from indigenous backgrounds. All of our ancestors come from it. So all of our humanity 4,000 years ago, we're just on a whole different spectrum of reality that we are not in today. We're in a digital mindset of, like, I like to call it, like, right now we're seeing digital nuclear bombs going off in real time with these Black Mirror devices that are programming humanity off 10-second video clips. And now with AI, like you said, you can't tell what's real and what's fake. So humanity is done. It's over. The, the only saving grace is like a massive solar flare just wiping us out or whatever. But I mean, let's be real here. The future evolution of AI, we're going to come to a point where we're going to look back at society and go, I wish we would have threw away these Black Mirror devices 20 years ago and went back to the 80s or 90s, even early 90s.
I think there's a whole generation of young people that feel that way too. They wish they see the 80s movies.
Yeah.
And they wish they grew up in the 80s.
Oh, absolutely.
Because we didn't have cell phones.
Yep.
We weren't better. We just didn't have the technology yet.
Yeah.
So Chris, let me understand what you're really saying here. At the end of the day, bottom line, these non-human intelligences that you believe actually, have been with us for a while. Robert Bigelow said they walk among us.
Mhm.
Are NHI interacting with humans today? Are they
I
among
think
us?
so. I think so through consciousness. I think if you want to interact with
Telepathically.
NHI, I think through consciousness, you have to tap into the real stuff, which is nature, and that elevates your consciousness for you to have experiences or maybe get downloads. Because at the end of the day is this, we're all going to leave this planet one day. And if you want your celestial spirit to go forward in the future, the best advice I can give people is create as much positive energy while you're plugged into the matrix, because that's the only way that's going to spring you forward. How much positive energy can I generate while I'm here and focus on to push my spirit forward into the future? Because I think at the end of the day, the only thing we have is time well spent. And that is with your loved ones, with your friends and families, having positive interactions and experiences, and avoid the noise as much as possible. Because when you're on your deathbed, you're not going to be thinking about a disclosure movement or what the president said or whatever. You're going to think about, shit, I wish I had more time with my family and we got to experience more stuff. So my advice is, while you're here, promote positive energy and that's why I spring forward. But I do kind of side with Robert Bigelow when he talks about that. I think what he means is consciousness is the way to connect and download some good intel, basically, to make a better self of yourself, to make a better person of you. I don't really believe that maybe they're walking with, like, aliens are walking with us, basically. I need evidence. I'm an evidence-based guy, basically, when it comes to that type of statements. If you're gonna make bold claims like that, you better have evidence to back it up. I mean, honestly.
But you know how the phenomenon works.
Yeah.
The dire wolf just disappears.
Yeah.
And you go to take a recording and the sounds turns off.
Yeah.
There
only
is
thing I was
something
gonna
about it.
do-
It doesn't want to be proven. It seems like the phenomenon always wants there to be plausible doubt.
Yeah, I agree.
And so there is no hard evidence.
Yeah, very, very hard to find good hard evidence. I mean, the evidence from that wolf incident were my photographs of the prints. That's about as far as we got with that.
But it's
And
easily dismissible, right?
it could be dismissed. Yes.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah. Wow, what a life you've had, Chris.
It's been interesting.
You at least know these orbs are real. What do you think they are? What are they?
As much of our, yeah, I think a lot of it is spirit, or it's residual energy that's in an area that manifests and shows itself as, like, either a reminder or a warning signal or something, or is trying to communicate. I think a lot of it might be residual energy, the typical ghost stuff. But yeah, that incident with the hangar 858 propulsion building, that was wild, because there was about 8 of us, 12 of us that all witnessed that, all different shades of diversity and male and female. We're just that was pretty wild. And that was long before going to Skinwalker. I was still in the Air Force. And
Yeah, I know. That was pre-Skinwalker and the Orange Orbs when you were younger on the farm.
yeah, that was when I was in high school. And that was a really weird, 'cause my parents live in the middle of nowhere, like I said. And I was coming back from work and we're driving down a dirt road. And I look up in the sky and I see a triangle of these 3 massive orange orbs that looked like they were floating. And I stopped, got out of the car, and just stood there looking at them. And then I flew into my parents' property, and I can see my parents through the window watching TV, and I can see the orbs like still gliding through our pasture into the west. So I run in the house, and my parents come out. We all see it, and then they disappear. Not like blink, but they kind of fade away. And then the next day at school, my neighbor who lives like, I don't know, 50 miles away from me, south of me, in a whole different farming community, he reported seeing the same stuff. And we were just, we weren't even really like best friends. We were just like friends. But he goes, I saw the weirdest thing last night. I saw these 3 giant orbs in the sky. And I'm like, what? So
Yeah,
whatever
yeah.
that was, I have no idea.
Well, in my interview with Dr. Eric Wargold, he wrote the time traveling book. The first experience he ever had with the paranormal was he was waiting to see some fireworks, and it was getting dark, and he saw orange orbs. And he actually, everybody saw them there, and he reported it to MUFON. And that's when he realized something's real. And he ends up writing this book about time faring. It's real. And I think it was the phenomenon. What do you feel in the presence of the orb?
At that specific one in the hangar, I felt fear.
Did you sense a consciousness?
I don't think I felt like a presence there, like an energy presence. Like I felt something was there. Like, how you get that feeling where somebody walks up behind you, you don't see him yet, but
Yeah, you felt a presence, right?
Felt the presence there. When I feel consciousness, like on spiritual levels, when I'm doing my grounding protocol at like McKee, I am really tapping into something, and it's just allows me to take some of these pictures I share with people, but also it just helps me focus on what's real, keeps me grounded, I
Yeah.
think that's important.
Well, Chris, we've been talking for 2 hours. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, you're welcome, man. I appreciate the conversation. I'm glad we finally did it.
I just want to encourage everyone that's watching this, follow him on X, Chris. You're just Chris Bartel on X.
Yeah. Chris
you've
Bartel, SWR. Yeah.
Yep. And then you've got your Patreon where you've got all your photography.
Yep.
Which
That's
is awesome.
free. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll put links in the description below so that people can hook up with you. And
Oh,
this crazy, the craziness just started because the president just made this announcement a couple of days ago. And I think I think this craziness is going to go on for a long time. And you are my sanity check. You're the one guy I absolutely trust on X, Chris. And
I
you're just
appreciate
cutting
that.
through the bullshit like a lightsaber.
I tried to. And it makes some people don't like that.
I know.
But I have to stay true to my professional background because I'm like, and some of these people I know some of these people that are talking. I'm like, I've listened to their speeches, I've listened to them talk, and I'm like, you're telling me that you basically violated need to know protocol and you tanked your career, and show me something that's, if you're going to say stuff out, you better bring some real hard evidence. I'm sorry. If the president comes out tomorrow and says, we got aliens and alien crap, you better be showing the people the evidence. Because if not, what's the point? Or are they going to pay our taxes? No. We're going to still pay our taxes. Aliens ain't going to, fix war. We're still going to play the war with Iran. Great. More loss of human life. It's just, it never ends. So humanity's on this brink of destruction. It's just unbelievable.
Yeah, I think things are going to get better in the long run. Don't you?
I hope so. Yeah, I do too. Yeah.
Yeah, there's going to be survivors.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Chris. Well, hopefully we can check in. I'd love to talk to you maybe in the fall, maybe in 6 months.
Yeah.
And just get a recap of all the shit that's going on. Okay, Chris. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, man.
Okay, take care.
Take care.